Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So, this is a story about our chicken hatching out chicks, sitting on eggs, hatching out chicks. Actually, not because her eggs are being bad, but that's part of the story. And then raising chicks. It's day 3 now, I believe, since that's happened. And this is something I did a long time ago. But this story has a lot of other things that I cover here, and so it's more about the process of turning yourself into a homesteader, and there's a big intuition piece to it, and there's it's just kind of an interesting story. So this is one of my favorite chickens, certainly now on the farm, which was my favorite chicken, and we call her Copper. um, I'm not sure of the breed. My wife, there's these various breeds of chickens. There's hundreds of them. And these hatcheries, I think we use My Pet Chicken. They have whatever chickens, hens that are available. We get the female only, and still once in a while you get a rooster. And this chicken showed up, and she was very friendly. She followed me around at times. She was always coming up, and some chickens are more friendly than others, and this was one of them. And she's neat looking, neat coloring, and so she lays cute little pink eggs, and she disappeared. So there was a shortage of hens that you could buy. So this was the spring where there was an egg shortage, and we were getting pretty much one or two eggs a day, maybe 3. We had 8 chickens, and maybe 4 or 5 of them were laying. The older they get, the less frequently they lay, the bigger their eggs that get. And, they don't lay as often, and they don't lay as long. And we had old chickens. She was one of the younger ones. I think she's probably 3 or 4 years old. So it'd been a number of years since we got new chicks. And then we went to purchase them, and there was such a backlog because so many people were buying chicks because there was an egg shortage. So we went to Tractor Supply, and they had these chicks, these black Jersey giants that turned out that we don't have any of them anymore. They were eaten, and we had 9 chicks, and 5 of them, my wife and I went on a trip, and 5 of them were eaten by raccoons. And so we ended up with these 2 golden Wyandottes. Let me show you a little clip of those guys. Hey guys, what's up? So these guys are golden Wyandottes. And my wife has been having chickens for 10 years, and I had chickens for about 10 years before that. So we both have about 20 years of experience. And one of the first broody hens that I had was a golden Wyandotte. And so, well, let me get into this part first. So I got this from an old video of mine. Last night I realized that I was like, where did I learn all this stuff about broody hens? Like, I have all this knowledge. And some of this video is about how my family and I and my ex and I, who didn't grow up in a farm, and we learned to be farmers, and how I learned to be a homesteader. And these skills that I've gotten, and before you know it, you're good at things, right? You start, participating in something. You start getting into something. And somewhere along the line, I learned how to set up a broody hen, the most optimal way to have them, successfully raise their chicks. And a few things happen about this particular situation, which I'll get into as the story evolves here. that showed my growth as a kind of a person. It has a lot to do with my, reading ability of people, in this case animals, and also taking an interest in things. But I remember I read this article, and I went to send it to my wife because I wanted her to read it. And it's called Working with Broody Hens, Let Mama Do It, Part 1. And I hadn't thought about this article in years, but I had it bookmarked. I had this whole folder with farming stuff. I have a new folder now, more recent stuff. But this is something I read, I don't know, around 20 years ago or so, maybe even longer than that, but maybe 18 years ago, I'm not sure. And now it doesn't exist. And so this speaks to the internet and how information just disappears, right? Websites. I mean, who goes to websites anymore? When's the last time you've been to a website? I mean, other than, something to do with some a media site or something. I mean, so like this stuff has all disappeared. And, this knowledge, I mean, they have other articles. I found other things about this. So I'm not sure if it's a total loss. But, it speaks to like just how everything's changes in a short period of time. Because this is a website I visit regularly. I've read this article a number of times, and it gave me all these helpful tips. And so one of my first broody hens were these golden Wyandottes. I couldn't find a video of that. I have so many videos. I have like a 30-part series on broody hens and chickens, and I'm sure I have some clips of her. But here's one of our broody hens. I forget what type she was. A lot of our chickens were kind of like mutts. And there's this one's called Ginger, and she was half golden Wyandotte. Her mom was original broody hen, and she's bringing these chicks around. And I had this affinity for golden Wyandottes because of the and there you see her. She has a little bit like a golden Wyandotte, but she was something else. I think we had some kind of like smaller these bantam type of roosters. And, some of these chickens go broody. Not all of them go broody. Some of them are, they lose their ability. This is this thing I set up years ago. And I just did this again for this. I did it in a crate. It's a little bit different because she's already hatched out her chicks in a sense. And I'll talk about this in a moment. What I did is just take 2 boards and screw them together and then throw some hay in there and put her in this thing we had. Was an old spring house, and it had a good door. It was secure from predators, and so it's kind of what we're doing now, and I'll get back to that in a second. But we got these 9 chickens from Tractor Supply, and 5 of them got eaten. And like I said, we came back, and these guys had already matriculated into the hen house. I went in here, and here they are up on the roost. So all 3 of them, 4 of them. So they're safe in the big coop now. So we have an old coop that my wife had built 10 years ago, I guess, when she first got chickens. And we have this newer coop that we have that's bigger, and it's the main coop that we use. And they were all in the smaller coop, but the predator, young small raccoons, were able to get through and kill them as chicks. And we got back, and these guys were, I don't know, this is probably a month or 2 ago, 6 weeks ago. And so there were 2 roosters, which they just they wouldn't cooperate. They were, roosters are basically raping chickens all the time. And they were being way too aggressive with the chickens, and one of them attacked my wife. And so they no longer are welcome here at the farm. And so all we had left is these 2 golden Wyandottes. And, I noticed that this copper chicken, the one that we call Copper, I think that's her name, had disappeared. I said to my wife, my favorite chicken disappeared. And we were wondering what kind of predator got her. And I checked the coop at night. Usually I throw out, I eat buckwheat, kasha, roasted kasha, and eggs every morning for breakfast. And whatever kasha I have left, I use like a Instapot to cook it. And if we have some watermelon or We eat watermelon a lot, and especially the summer, obviously. And I throw them out some like mealworms if we have those. And so Copper was one of the ones that always was first to come to the door when I throw things out. I go, wow, I haven't seen her in like a week or two. And after you have chickens for a while, especially if you have a lot of them, there's times that we've had 30 here. I had over 30 at our original homestead. Even if there's 10 or 15, they all kind of blend together. Oftentimes you have a bunch of the same breed, so it's hard to tell them apart. They almost look identical. They look identical like these two guys. I can tell these apart because one of them's a little bit more shy than the other one, and one of them's sort of a follower. And there's a leader and a follower, but they look identical. And so it's hard for you to have any sort of like distinction. But this one, we had one of these copper chicks, hens, and she was kind of, she was more friendly. She used to follow me around a little bit. She often was like right outside our front porch, so I'd see her quite a bit. And I was a little bit bummed because she was unique looking. And, but we had these two Wyandottes, and I always like these chickens. They're really neat looking. And these were particularly friendly. And, sometimes when the chickens are young, they think you're a rooster. And so they get in the position to where, the rooster's could mate with them. And it makes them easy to pick up. Let me show you here. I picked one of these up here. Look at this Wyandotte here. She lets me pick her up. It's the other one. It's the other one there. These are the last of our two chicks. I'll let her go here. But she's very friendly. They're just amazing looking chickens. We'll get them in the light. But just the way that their feather patterns go, like these are all with feathers that have black and gold on them to create this pattern. Like all these chickens are unique with their patterns. The Wyandottes have a certain pattern. There's hundreds of breeds of chickens, all with unique, interesting patterns. There's this one that has these little, all these things, and the way their feathers come together and make these patterns. They're running after a squirrel or something, my dogs. Anyways, I'm about to put a fan in their chicken coop here. So, I was a little bit bummed by this copper what had left. I found a video. I had one video I'd made of the copper. I was talking about like why she was such a great hen, and I couldn't find that video clip, but I found the one with her eggs in it here. So it's been very hot here. And the chickens were laying. We're getting one egg a day. It's about to rain. Really hot today. But these are 4 nice eggs. They're all different. Well, 2 of them are similar than the green ones. But we have the nice spotted brown one and cute little pink one. My favorite chicken lays these pink eggs. Anyways, so I was a little bit bummed, like just chickens come and go. I mean, it's just whatever it is. But these Wyandottes were following us around all the time, and they were, kind of affectionate. I mean, chickens are. I always say, like, if chickens were the size of cows, we'd all be dead. Like these, they have the most vicious pecking order, and occasionally people have pets that become sort of a little bit affectionate and, are more tame than others. Our chickens are, somewhere between that. They'll run up to us for food, but they're also scared of us, and they're, But then these guys started to lay. They laid these tiny little pink eggs, kind of like the copper chicken. Chicken's first egg is always small, this little pink egg. So they started to lay eggs, and I was happy to have this breed back. The Wyandottes are a particularly interesting pattern. We used to have silver Wyandottes here as well, and the gold Wyandottes are often Broody Hens. And like it just was what happened, and then we were getting more chicks. We ordered 10 chicks, and we ended up getting 3 guinea fowl, which you'll see some of that as we go through this. And then one day, the copper chick showed back up. So she showed back up. I think she might have gone broody, and it's just maybe has a bunch of eggs she's sitting on. So that's cool. So that's what happened, obviously. And a few days later, I was checking for something in the old hen. There's nothing in the old hen house. All of our hens we have, I think, 9 total, 8 or 9 total, and they're all in the big hen house. The big hen house holds about up to probably about 30, not 20 comfortably, and so that's the best one for them. But I ended up checking the nest box here. I don't know what I was looking for, and there she was. I wasn't looking for her, and so she had these eggs under her. So she had these eggs under her. She got up every once in a while. See, when a hen goes broody, some of the hens are capable of raising a brood and some of them aren't. It's an instinctual behavior. And most of these hens, all the hens that we have been raised by, an incubator and then put in a box and sent to us with a heating pad, and then we raise them. And we have a heat lamp, and the heat lamp has to keep them 95 degrees in the first week, 90 degrees in the second week, 85 in the third week, and so on. And then they grow their feathers, and then they can be outside depending on the time of the year it is. And, you have to do a lot to raise the chicks. I've showed you videos. I have videos about that on this channel, clips of that. And, it's a lot. It's fun, but, it becomes... And when they first get there, they're cute, and it's a nice thing to have, especially if you hadn't had them a few years. But it's somewhat time-consuming. If you have a good broody hen, they will keep the chicks warm. And first of all, they'll sit on the eggs and hatch the eggs out. And then the eggs will hatch out, and they will keep the chicks warm. They'll walk around, teach the chicks how to scratch and get food. And, then they'll just plop down in the middle of the ground somewhere, and the middle of the yard or the farm, and the chicks will go underneath them, and their heads will pop out. It's something I wanted my wife to see. My wife really, she likes chickens more than I do. She's in charge of the chickens. She's, been the chicken person. Back when my first homestead, I was in charge of the chickens. But my wife is, she was already doing the chickens, and I had done it for 10 years, so, I like having them. It was nice to have somebody else do it. But she had never had a broody hen before. And so when a hen goes broody, and a lot of our hens go broody, they'll go broody in the nest box. And you'll go to get the eggs, and there'll be a broody hen, and they puff out, and they make a sound. I've shown videos of that before. And so you can see they're broody because they puff out their feathers, and they walk around. And they'll be sitting on eggs, and you can collect the eggs underneath them. And they will just go sitting in the same nest box. The problem with the nest box in terms of long-term success of a broody hen is that oftentimes they'll jump back into the wrong nest box, because we have 8 nest boxes. And or they'll get pushed out by some other hen, or some other hen will come in. And, the eggs have to be kept at a certain humidity and a certain temperature. Even when it's cold out or warm out, the hens are able to keep it at a certain temperature. It's like 80 degrees or something, 80-something degrees, and a certain level of humidity. And so if you have these things, you can get these incubators, they're able to do that. And, but if the power goes out and the incubator shuts off, all the chicks die, right? And so it's a very precise thing. And, so the nest boxes, let's say you can get the chicken to sit on them for 21 days and do that successfully. Then the chicks hatch, and what do the chicks do? It's a 2-foot drop from the nest box. The hen can't stay in there for 3 days in a row while the chicks get old enough to be able to jump, and they're not going to learn how to jump if they're not good at moving around. So then you have to pick the chicken up and set her up somewhere else, move all the chicks. It's a big, kind of a hassle, and, it's not ideal. And sometimes the hen will reject her chicks, or she'll just abandon them after a short period of time. And there's all kinds of things that could happen. And some of the chickens, the hens will shit in the nest where they're right on top of the eggs. And the chicks hatch, they get exposed to all this bacteria. And so, not all chickens that go broody are good, capable moms. And you really can't tell until it happens. And so, we had 13 chicks that we're raising now, which is a lot. And there's always predators. A few always die. I mean, it's just, we got more than normal. And, given the shortages that have been happening because people are all going crazy raising chickens because of the egg issues, the egg prices that happened. Unfortunately, the egg prices are more in the winter when your chickens don't lay. And so we didn't know if these eggs were actually fertilized because we got rid of the roosters right around the time that she disappeared. And so I had no idea if the roosters were old enough because they weren't even full-grown roosters. But they were basically raping all the chickens, and they're big and heavy roosters, like I said. But we don't know if they were able to fertilize the eggs. We don't know if she had, like they sit on the eggs like almost 24 hours a day, but they'll get up and eat and go to the bathroom and get a drink of water and come back and sit on their eggs. But they get crazy after a while. They're just sitting there 24 hours a day, and they're not eating and they're not drinking. They're dehydrated. They're losing weight, and so they get fucking stir crazy. And so we didn't know if there had been an issue with the eggs. We didn't know how long she'd been gone, because I just noticed, but she could have been gone for a longer time. So we didn't know when these eggs were going to hatch out. And, she was kind of a small chicken. And so that's maybe too many eggs for her, so maybe she couldn't cover them all. And so there's all these unanswered questions, right? And so,
Hasn't hatched out yet. You can hear the chicks start peeping when they...
So I was saying there is, once she hatches out the chicks are underneath her. And the only way you can tell is they peep because she's keeping them warm. And once in a while they stick out their heads, which is really cute. Sometimes like you'll see all these chicks peering out from their feathers, which is interesting, kind of a neat thing. And so this past Saturday, I'm like, it's just been too long. Maybe it was Friday. And my wife was running some errands. And I'm sitting there looking at her, and I don't know if you can see it really well in this picture, but her comb is all faded. And I'm not sure what day this is from. But her comb is all faded. It's a light pink. I don't know if I took a video of that day. But their comb indicates how healthy they are. And not only her comb, her eyes look glassy, and she just looks like she's probably been there for like 28 days or longer than 21. And again, since we didn't know when she disappeared, and we just didn't know, and we're waiting for the eggs to hatch. But the problem is that if the eggs aren't fertilized and they are sitting there just dead eggs and she's heating them up, they get stinky when they break. I mean, rotten eggs are horrible smelling. And they can get like gas that builds up in them and they just explode. And it will stink up that whole hen house. And, if she does have some chicks in there and not all the eggs are fertilized or not all the eggs hatch, then they're with these ticking time bombs that can get broken, and they're full of bacteria and they're fucking gross, right? And so I looked at her and go, we got to get her out of there. And so I'm thinking that she's really dedicated to this thing. And, I want to have her have of chicks. And my wife, I wanted her to see a Broody Hen. My wife has really wanted to see a Broody Hen for a while. And we just haven't had the opportunity and the setup for it. And so, and we saw that they had these cute chicks at Tractor Supply. And so I'm like, I'm going to call my wife, and on the way home, she can pick up some chicks, and we'll just shove them under her and hope that she takes them. But if she doesn't take them, she can kill them, and she could, any number of things can happen that are bad, right? She can reject the chicks, and then we have to raise more chicks. We just got done raising the other one. And then it sucks having chicks that are so small compared to other ones because, you can't put them together. They have brutal pecking order. And so, it was a risk. But I'm like, you know what? I just think that she can do it. I'd like my wife to see it. So I'm calling my wife up to tell her to get chicks. And I said, where are you? And she goes, I'm in Tractor Supply getting more chicks. She was just joking. So like that moment where she's in Tractor Supply looking at the chicks, and I'm thinking we should get more chicks because I'm, a little bit iffy about it because, I don't want a big hassle, and this could be a hassle, and it could go south. She kills the chicks. That sucks. she can see the chicks as being predatory. And so a few things happened. Let me just show you this video clip. So right after that, I said, well, let's wait till you get home and we'll go back out to Tractor Supply together. We'll get the chicks and we'll put them underneath her. And right after that, she leaves the nest.
Here's our chicken.
So she's sharing this coop with the other chicks. And we were letting the other chicks out during the day and leaving it open. And she would leave, her sitting on the eggs for a little bit and go out and, do this other stuff, right? And, the kestrel came in and we had to create these chicken runs. You can see there's 2 of them. And so the chicks could get out. And, the chicks are about a month old now. The guinea fowl are almost as big as chickens. They grow really fast. And we hadn't seen them interact. But she comes out, and when she's sitting on the brood, she's not going to attack any of them because she doesn't want to leave her eggs. But she's being very aggressive. Like, she's not just pecking them. She's, like, going for the kill. And she's chasing them. So that doesn't make me feel great about putting some chicks in there if she doesn't think they're hers, right? So, like, she's got to believe that these chicks are hatching underneath her. And I don't know if I'd ever done that before. I can't remember if I have. Probably not. I don't think I ever had that, In fact, I never did that. So I've never had that experience where her eggs didn't hatch. Any Broody Hen that I had, the eggs didn't hatch, and we put, other chicks under her. And so she's being so aggressive, now I'm second guessing whether we should get them.
So Broody Hen chasing the chicks. It's not good. Hopefully she goes back up and to our brood. Stand there so she doesn't chase them. So sometimes they were all her eggs are bad. We took out most of them. I left 3. We're gonna go get her some chicks and see if she will take the chicks and stop being broody. They get a little bit crazy. See her comb is all white, and so I want her to get back in the nest. We're gonna get her some chicks, and hopefully she does broody. Otherwise, we'll just take the rest of the eggs, which we'll do anyway. And soon as
Okay, so she's making a noise now. You're going to hear this. It's a behavior that mother hens do and also roosters do. Now, roosters do it for a different reason. They want the hens to think they're a good provider. And so when they see food, they'll touch the food with their beak and they'll make this sound. So the hens will run up and take the food, and then they'll often do this dance around the hen, claiming that hen for themselves, as part of their harem. Sometimes it's like you're throwing out food and the hens already know where the food is. And they're mansplaining, like, hey, there's food over here, and the hens are already eating it. But also mother hens do this for their babies. They show the babies where there's food, and they make this sound. And when I heard this sound, I knew that she was ready to have chicks. She probably had been in the brood far too long. I had taken out most of the eggs. And all the eggs, some of them stunk. Some of them just had this yellow mush. Not one of them showed any sign that it had ever had a chick in there. So that means they weren't fertilized, or the temperature was wrong. It was more likely that none of them were fertilized. And so either the roosters weren't old enough or whatever happened. And so I had to get rid of all these stinky eggs. I had 3 eggs underneath her. And I was like, all right, we'll go get the chicks. But when I saw her making this sound, I knew that she's ready to be a mom. Because she's making this sound for chicks that don't exist. Like her biological clock has said that she's probably should have already had the chicks. Right? And, maybe it's hard to make a chicken not be broody. And, the fact that she's probably sat on these eggs for well over 21 days means that she really probably needed the chicks just to break her free from this cycle. And she's getting thin and she looks unhealthy. But here she's making that noise.
this thing happens. She's making a sound calling her chicks to. That's a sound she would make for her chicks to do the thing.
So that's when I knew it was going to happen. Like I was pretty sure that she's just going to adopt the chicks and it'd be ready to go. And it's just something like if you do things long enough, you have a sense of it. It's just like I can read people in terms of politicians or whatever it is, and my years of training as a counselor, and just because I take an interest in things. I've watched chickens' behavior. I'm fascinated by chicken behavior. They have a very complex social system. And knowing what I know of raising, not raising, but facilitating the proper environments for hens to go broody and understanding, what's going to help them be successful in raising their chicks. And I've done this a number of times. I haven't done it in years, but it's the memories there, the skill level. The when you do something as a job and you work at it, you get good at it. You learn more about it. And so I'm observing her, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think she's going to break. Like you can take a hen and break them of being broody by putting them in a cage, because sometimes they'll go broody for a couple months, and they just but that doesn't mean like they're going to be good moms. Like it's just all these things. But the fact that she's doing that behavior, she's doing it with imaginary chicks, like she's losing it, right? And so I'm like, all right, like this just seems the right thing to do. And it turned out to be the right thing, but there was a moment where it was a little bit sketchy. But this is what I was talking about, the intuition part as well. Reading, this is a part of being like doing the Sagemark system. The fact that I have the idea that we should get chicks, and I call my wife to say, why don't you pick up some chicks on the way home? I didn't even know she was going to Tractor Supply. And she was going to some other places. I didn't know she was going to Tractor, like she was at Tractor Supply. And the first thing out of her mouth before I say anything is, and she's teasing me like she was going to get more chicks, which really, every time she goes in there, she wants to get them. So it's like this thing. And so I'm like, all right, this is what's supposed to happen, right? Because there's these unknowns. You don't know what this 10 is going to do. And if she rejects the chicks, she's being so aggressive. She was going for the kill. I think she goes back in after these. Let's see what happens here.
Her nest is up those stairs, her brood. But they said the eggs they're not good. So we're waiting for her to go up, and we're going to go get her some chicks and put them under her. Hopefully she takes the chicks, and then, because she's wearing down. Like she's probably been doing it for 30 days. We don't know when she started to be broody because she just disappeared, and I didn't realize it till after a time. No.
So she went after the guinea fowl, one of the bigger ones, and she got a bunch of feathers. And I'm like, this isn't really safe now because they're all in this confined environment. It's not ideal. If the kestrel wasn't there, like we lost 2 chicks and 1 guinea fowl to the kestrel already. And the kestrel came in, and she had killed a chick, which my wife saw. She didn't see her kill it, the kestrel. But I came back and the chick was moved, and the thing had already eaten off its head. It was gross. And so, we got to get her out of there. So like, this is not a good situation. And, so we're going to have to break her of being broody because her eggs aren't going to be hatched anyway. She's like in getting the life-threatening situation. She's like starving and, whatever. And, getting crazy. So we went and got the chicks. And I had a plan. And she still had these 3 crappy eggs under her. And but I was going to open the back door. There's 2 doors on the side there's the nest box where you open up and get the eggs. And on the side of that, there's a place where they can roost inside. And there's 2 big doors you can pull down, and her back was to the door. And so I wanted my wife to hold hand me the chicks, and I was going to put them underneath her. And she had pecked me a few times when I was getting the eggs out from under her, the shitty eggs, the rotten eggs. And so I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, so we switch pictures here. Like, I had no idea how she was going to react. You can see from where she's sitting, there's a door behind her. And so I put the chick in, and she pecks me, and then she pecks the chick. And I'm like, fuck, this is not good. We get all the chicks in there, And we close the door so she's like alone. It's kind of dark in there. And I come back and open the door because I don't want her killing the chicks. And she takes one of the chicks and pushes it into her feathers. And I'm like, oh my God, she's accepting them. And my wife is just like so psyched. And we're sitting there going, wow, this is amazing, you know. But there's this idea, like, I can't explain it like this. You know, it seems like a small thing, but it's, you know, understanding what the right thing to do. Because it could have been just a complete hassle. Like it could have went like the totally opposite way. But like the intuition I had, I just said, this is what's, you know, this is going to happen. And so we let her have the chicks that night in her normal spot and let her get comfortable with them. And we had to get rid of those rotten eggs. And plus we didn't want her walking down these stairs. You know, there's these chicken stairs, and those chicks are not ready to walk down them. You saw them in the other photo. So you can see it here. So behind that water thing there's stairs. It's hard to see. If you ever see chicken stairs, they're just it's a plank with some little slats on it so the chickens can climb up. But those little chicks could just not do it, and they couldn't climb down, so she was going to have to get out of there. She can't just sit there 24 hours. She has to get her own food and water. We'd put water and food in with her that night, but the next morning we had to move her. Now, it's easy to catch a broody hen with chicks because she's not going to want to leave her chicks. And so I got behind her and picked her up and put her in we had a bin, and my wife grabbed all the chicks and we put it with her so she would calm down. She stayed calm. And we brought her to this well house. Now, we had a spring house that didn't have a spring in it in my first farm. Actually, the second homestead that we built. And, you know, it was a cool little building. It had a place where you would put milk, and spring water would come up and be cold and keep the milk cold. And, you know, things like this. So, but the spring wouldn't work. I tried to get the spring to work, but, you know, I didn't have the ability to do that. And so we took her and put her in this well house that is also a dead well that's not working, and it's just a building. We had raccoons in there for a while, and we got it kind of fixed up, and we cleaned it up a little bit. And we didn't. They weren't pet raccoons. They came in, they just fucking trashed the place. And so we moved her in there, and she was just she sat right in the nest area. So let me just show you some videos of that here.
Carved out this little path. This used to be all cleared land. We had some logs here that we didn't use because we never put it in a wood-burning stove. This is a little area where we grew some vegetables, and then it became just a volunteer of these black-eyed Susans. And I cut this out because over here leads to our old chicken coops right here. So this goes over here to the old chicken coop, which I'll show at some point. And then next here is this nice path that goes over here too. There's more black-eyed Susans on either side. We have this well house. Years and years ago, I put broody chickens in a spring house that had a spring that no longer a dry spring. But this is a well house. It used to be the well for this house. Now there isn't anything. So bumblebee buzzing around. And this is it's kind of not great. It smells a little bit here. A little saw a mouse in here earlier. But there's some chicks in here that we put in with her. See them poking out over there. She's a really good mom. So the eggs that she had were not either fertilized or whatever. But we'll put some watermelon down here and some food for her to get. Also, the mice will eat the food, but that's whatever it is. Pretty psyched. So I have the whole video that you've already seen part of, and I'll show you when she's out scratching with the chicks. But you can see there's a chick right in there with her, next to her. So I'm pretty psyched about that. She adopted them. Now she's their mom. That's what she's making, the broody noises. So this is I think the 30th, Saturday the 30th of August 2025, and I'll cover this more as we go through it. Feathers and just squint back in. It's cuzzling. There's another one sticking its head out. So we got this door open here, and I think I can go out to this area here. And scratch and, do whatever and stay in, and she got a safe place to go into. A good solid door on it for predators. Coming out and eating here. They're over here when we walked up. And then they go hide under their mama's feathers. It's pretty cool. A little setup here with the waters and food. So that sound she made was an example of Broody sound. It's when, it's sort of a warning, threatening, don't come near me. And as she puffs up, they make themselves bigger. They fluff up their feathers. There was a time where my border collie, Lucy, who they had a video up some time ago where she had a chick on her back. She would herd the chicks and she would follow the chicks around. She never heard anything, right? She just wanted to herd everything because she was a border collie. Or, mostly a border collie. She was mixed. And we were in with this golden Wyandotte chicken, and it turned into a torpedo, and it held its feathers in a way I've never seen before, and it jumped straight at her like a dart, like a torpedo. And Lucy was totally rattled, and I was like, "Well, what the fuck was that?" And so they have ways of defending their chicks, and they'll actually go after chickens that they're lower in the pecking order. When they get into this mode, they'll go after all the other chickens and roosters. They're aggressive with these other hens, even though they're lower in the pecking order when they're not broody. So it's kind of interesting. Drinking water in here. The other two, one of them ran back. Let's just make them out. The other two are on top, or one's on top. Chicks are in here, and this one's poking out there. The rest are underneath her. Today is 31st of August on Sunday, 2025. And this has gone really well. She's doing a good job as a mom. Hopefully she leaves this building. I want her to get comfortable in here, so she comes back here. This is the best place for her. Alright, she's getting defensive, and that's when they puff out like that. They're like, that's their aggressive mode. Little chick with its head popped out there. So this is the behavior earlier I was referring to, where she's showing the chicks there's food, but of course we have feeders there, we have food spread across the floor, and we have mealworms. So the chicks have plenty to eat. I don't think the chicks are ready for the mealworms, but she's trying to point out to them that there's food. That's the noise she's making, and it's kind of a cool behavior. So it's kind of interesting.
tick back there, one poking out. There you go. Yeah. She just went to the bathroom, which, you know, they hold it in for like all day, so it's really horrible. But. So this path has been really wonderful, this path that I cut out with the chainsaw and various other tools, you know, loppers and the lawnmower. And it's just, we have this little woods area now. It used to be, like I said, pretty cleared out. And it's just a small little area, but it's like changed everything. And just oddly, my wife's really happy about it. And, you know, the whole thing, I wanted to say, you know, my kids grew up on a farm, and they loved it at first. They loved it when they were young. They were milking cows and doing all these cool things, being around the animals. You know, my wife and I, when I was a young kid, I wanted to be a naturalist. There's a show called Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. It was on every Sunday night. And there's a guy named Marlon Perkins, an old guy. And he was like a, you know, an old-time crocodile hunter, you know, some of these other, whatever they are. These guys that went out, naturalists, and would find animals and show you the animals in their natural habitat and things. I watched all these other nature shows, and I used to go to the library and read about my favorite animals. I just loved animals. Like I had a really high vocabulary and reading level as a kid because I was going to the libraries and reading like adult shit, like encyclopedias and books and things like this. And, you know, my dad had promised to take me to Africa when I was a young kid. He said, when you get older. And knowing full well that when I got older, I wouldn't want to go, right? You know, on safari that I was, you know. My dad had to take Dramamine when we went on deep sea fishing with my grandfather. And, you know, he was in his 50s, 60s, like he was 45 when I was born. So when I was 10, he'd be 55, and not a young 55 in terms of, you know, overweight and, you know, whatever. I mean, he's not an adventurous type. And, you know, cheap and just these things. So that wasn't going to happen. But, you know, it's always been something I enjoyed. My wife, very similarly, we love to have animals and be around animals. We go on these nature walks. We see, like, all these different creatures, some of them small, some of them big. You know, all these different wild animals and birds and things in our ponds and these things, right? So, you know, something I really enjoy. And then having the various farm animals. And chickens are so exotic. There's so many different colors. You know, they originally come from this jungle fowl, which is a beautiful bird, an Indian bird. There's all these different breeds. You know, but my kids grew up with this stuff. And we withheld as much technology as we could. They had to homeschool, so they got access to a computer. And they were able to do some things on the computer. But they all shared a computer, and they were, you know, they didn't have cell phones. And then when my family fell apart and there was going to be no intergenerational family farm and things had gone south, my ex was, you know, flipping out. She had her various, you know, emotional breakdowns, psychological breakdowns. And my daughter started to follow suit. They were both cutting, you know, cutters. My ex had cut, you know, when she was a kid with her parents. She was abused and stuff by her dad and mom and all that. And so at least that was her story. And so, you know, the kids just wanted to be like normal kids. I ended up getting them cell phones, and they started playing video games and doing all that shit. And, you know, they all said they kind of wanted to maybe someday go back and live on a farm, but in reality they didn't. And it's kind of weird because I kind of love it, and I didn't know how I'd love it as much as I do. I really enjoy the work. I really enjoy the chores, and it's a great thing to do as you retire. And, you know, as you... I mean, I can always probably do this until I'm just, my brain is fried, which, you know, maybe not that far off. But, you know, I look forward to doing more and more farming work and growing more and more of our food and all these things. I really enjoy doing it. And, you know, not like maybe a full-time person, but, you know, 5-6 hours a day or whatever. And it keeps you going as an older person. You know, as long as you have things to do and goals, and that's a great way to keep on going after you know, people retire and, you know, do whatever they do. You know, they give up on life. And as you do it, you after a while, there's a rhythm to the farm, and there's just things that you know how to do. And, you know, I'll do updates on this Broody Hen, and she's doing really well now. And after about a month, they just say fuck you to their chicks. I mean, they're just they'll peck at them. When the chicks try to follow them, they'll chip back at them, and like they chase them away, like they totally turn on them. But it's an interesting process, and we have those other chicks here as well. But this whole idea of making the right decisions, like how do I know whether it was right to get the chicks or not, right? Because raising more chicks was not really. I mean, given all the things going on and all what we're doing, and I didn't. I mean, it's a hassle, and we just did it a couple of times already. We did it in the spring, and we did it this last couple of weeks. We've been doing it for a month or so, raising the latest group of chicks. And so, and she might kill them, which would be kind of, I mean, you never know what's going to happen. And we didn't really need all that many more chicks. We're going to have about 20 chickens when this is all said and done, depending on, what predators do or whatever else, which is a lot for us now. We're empty nesters, no kids here eating eggs and things. And so, we'll give eggs away to people, but, we don't need all those eggs. It's a lot of chickens to feed. But it was just something like, I knew it was the right thing to do. Like her going broody like this and disappearing and doing it in a way that, she was already engaged in the process. And there's just, like it's like I said, it's a crapshoot. You never know how, when you put chicks in front of a chicken, what they're going to do with them. But she ended up being a good mom, and, it's the whole thing's kind of cool. I was aware of the positive and negatives of getting these chicks. And it doesn't seem like a big deal. But we have to make decisions all the time. And there's always unknowns. Like there's always ways you don't know, what the outcome's going to be. That you don't sometimes know why you're doing something. I mean, people have bigger decisions about marriage and moving and what to do with their kids and, all these things that you have, these big life decisions. But you have small decisions as well. And, there's always unknowns, right? There's always possibilities that this can go this way or that way. And that's why I always talk about, when you have a relationship with the divinity within you and you start listening with your heart, with a spiritual way, you end up being able to, make the right decision. And everything just falls into place the way it's supposed to. I mean, sometimes the right decision means you've made a big hassle for yourself, but that's what's supposed to happen, right? Like if you, develop the capacity to connect to God and make your decisions where you're full faith that, not because you're making it up. Like people say all the time, God wants me to do this. And they're just fucking lying to themselves, right? They're making this stuff up. But, if God really wants you to do something and, your soul does, you get a feeling with it and there's, leap of faith. And then, when you go to do it, there's whatever happens, it's the right thing. Like even if things go sideways, even if there's undesirable outcomes, you did the right thing. And that's, like this was indicative of the way this whole thing came together with this hen. Anyways, like I hope this is clear. I did a long voiceover this morning that I think is really important about good versus evil and how our culture gets that wrong. But anyways, let me wrap this one up here. Okay, so I was just about to put this video up. There's some more stuff I want to say about it. When I had all the things I wanted to say about the story, I forgot stuff because, we're dealing with other farm stuff today. And this video type, which I used to make a lot, is a lot harder to do because I have to take all the clips from my phone and move it over to get it up on the computer and then go through it. And I end up having to upload all these photos and videos of other things that are going on in the farm and sort of comb through them. There's an old video of the hen that I was looking for I couldn't find. And so this all just took a lot more time. It's a lot more technical and harder for me to do. And then I was just tired from just all of it, the whole thing with getting everything ready and all the work I did in making the trail and these things. I'll put a photo up here. I put some lights on the trail, making it sort of like these, magical little lights. And then my wife and I just took a photo, or I took a photo of one of the chicks just peeping out. But when we went to buy the chicks, they had 4 different breeds, and a straight run, it's a possibility you might get a rooster. A straight run means that they don't know what the sex of the chicks are, so it's just random. But they had 2 all-female breeds. They had a couple of them. There's like maybe 3 or 4. But they had Astrolorps and they had Americana. Now, Americana often lay blue or green eggs. You don't know what you're going to get with them. They're kind of an odd chicken. And they look different. They're Americana are different. Oftentimes they look different. They're not a consistent breed. And they can be brown, green, or blue eggs. But we always like to have more color in our eggs. We have a number of green, and I think we have green now, not blue. And we have a couple of pink eggs. And right now the Wyandottes are laying very small. They're about half the size of a normal egg because they're still small chickens. They're not fully grown. And the way we got chickens years ago is that there was a family that had a cow, and they were getting so much milk from the cow, they were giving it away to people who wanted raw milk. And my family and I were getting milk from them. We'd pay something, we'd contribute money to the feed, but it was basically free. And we eventually bought their cow for them. And that was a whole, I went to India, it was a whole thing that happened. I saw a cow that was there at a gathering, and it was just, it was transformative because I just loved having cows. And my family and I milked cows and made cheese and did all these things for a number of years. And it was transformative. The cow has such a beneficial creature to humanity, and it's just the relationship there, especially with the dairy cows, where you have to interact on a daily basis. And my kids learned to milk out cows, and my 9-year-old daughter I had this one great video and all these things. This was the good time of my family, the positive part about it, the part that I, can remember fondly, right? Other than the implosion of the family and my ex, cutting herself and, all these things, threatening suicide and, flipping out, having these emotional breakdowns, and my daughter following suit and also being a cutter and learning that from my ex, which eventually led to her suicide and these things. But this family also had chickens, and my kids were over this. We ended up being friends with them, and the kids they had kids, around my kids' age, and my kids went over there. And my daughter Anna was such a great animal person, and they had a golden. They had a Buff Orpington, which is sort of a light orange chicken that went broody and had 15 chicks. And they couldn't catch the chicks. The family, they had, older kids there. And my daughter Anna came back with one in either hand. She was the best at catching animals, and she was a high risk person. She was a little bit reckless, but she would always catch these animals. And so they decided to just come over one day and drop off chickens. Like we didn't even, we were like, yeah, we didn't have any place to put them. And so they dropped off these chickens, and my family and I sat out and just watched the chickens, and they were had all these cool sounds. Chickens have over 20 different sounds, and they have one sound for an aerial predator and these other things, and they're always communicating the flock, and they have this, interesting pecking order. And one of them caught a little snake, like one of these 14-inch little tiny snakes, and they were chasing it around. I showed a video about I threw some worms in, and the chicks do the same thing, and they snatch it from each other's mouths, and we just watched them and listened to sounds, and they were fascinating. And we just put up some chicken fat wire. We didn't have a place to put them in, and eventually a raccoon got some of them, so I cleared out a little plastic shed and put them in there, and then eventually I built a hen house. And so the leader of the sort of dominant hen was an Astrolorp. An Astrolorp is a neat looking chicken. It's jet black, like this. There's lots of things that are, they say are black, and it's not black. black is a very compelling color, but oftentimes it's light brown or just not like a charcoal gray, and but very seldom you see something that's jet black. And this astrolorps are jet black, but they have a little green iridescent feathering. And this chicken was like very friendly with people, but she was dominant over the other hens, and she was just a great chicken. And there's certain breeds I just have a more of a like a affinity for, because they just for whatever reason. And my wife got some astrolorps. We got some astrolorps either at Tractor Supply, or she threw the chicken thing. And we raised some astrolorps, and they were just great chickens. And this astrolorp, our astrolorp, just had died when the roosters were were we took care of the roosters, right? So it was like on the same day, and this was just a couple weeks ago. So I wanted to get more astrolorps, and they had them at Tractor Supply because they're just a good breed. And we wanted more green and blue egg layers, and we wanted to get some roosters so we could have broody hens after we got into the chickens. After we really liked having the chickens, and we wanted to have more of them. And we felt like we had a couple Buff Orpingtons, and they seemed to be going broody. I was just learning about that. That was just like our first year having chickens, and we found somebody who had green laying hens, and they weren't fully grown yet. And the guy said they were both, hens, and they were Americana. And so this was the first year we have hens, and the Americana turned out to be roosters, because the guy lied to us, and like I didn't know the difference, and they weren't fully grown either way. But they started to crow, and so those were our first roosters. And so I have a connection with those two breeds of chickens, and so we were like, all right, let's get those. And there's just something there, right? There's just a flow to it, and I can't really describe it. But all these things that you have on a farm, all these things as you become a homesteader, you have stories for. Like there's just, there's more stories. This is the abridged version of our relationship with the chickens and how we came about chickens and cows. And when we got the cow the first night, Pezra, she jumped. I didn't want to put up barbed wire, so she jumped the fence, and she went to this area where there's a hunting club across the street. We were worried that like the hunters were gonna just shoot her, even though she was a cat, like this kind of thing. So the guy who we bought the cow from came over, and we went over and got the cow, and she came when he called her name because she was kind of freaked out. He did some kind of special military shit, like secret shit, like I don't know, like government contractor. I don't know what it was, but they were like interesting. He helped me put barbed wire up and said, "You got to put barbed wire." And like, this is my introduction to being a farmer. I didn't want to put the barbed wire up because I didn't want the cows to get hurt, But you like cows, their skin is leather, right? So you just go through these things, and there was like all these signs of connectivity. And now we have these two chickens, these four chicks. Two of them are Americana that'll hopefully lay blue eggs or maybe green, because we'll have assortment of eggs. I don't know about all of our chicks that we have now. Most of them are brown eggs. And some of the brown eggs are speckled. We had this one that laid speckled eggs, and they were amazing looking eggs. And then there's different shades of brown eggs, and then there's the pink eggs, which are considered light brown, but they're really pink. And then we have these astrolorps, which are really good hens. They're very sturdy, and they're just good hens, and they're friendly, and they're people friendly, and they're whatever, curious. And so I thought I would add that. There was probably more of the story that I forgot. I was kind of tired when I finally put it together. But there's just like I can't really describe it, but the way that the chick going broody, and just there's like a plan. Like I'm always looking for. God has a plan, and you say, well, it's kind of insignificant. They're just, hens, and my wife and I have had, hundreds of chickens now, different breeds, and, my chickens all ended up getting the disease, and they would die after being 2 years old, so we always had to bring in new chickens because there was something in the dirt that was making them sick, and they would get diarrhea. It just became a real bummer just to watch the chickens die, and I had to bury the chickens. So many of them, our border collie Lucy would dig them up after the chicken had like fermented a little bit. It was weird. She would eat them. Like she wouldn't eat them like right off the bat, but if she smelled them and they fermented, she'd dig them out. It was the whole thing. Life on the farm, there's life and death, and there's just, there's things you have to do as a farmer that aren't so pleasant, and, there's just all these things, right? Anything aggressive you have to cull, like any kind of animal. A cow that attacks people, butts people, has to go, and chickens, roosters that attack you, these things like this. Like there's things you just have to deal with, and there's just all these stories, and you have to change your perspective, and you're actually dealing with your food, like you're having a relationship with your food. And I after doing this for I don't know well into the 30 years now, I think I had 3 different homesteads now. Maybe it's like 5 total, and working on these things and gaining skills and doing these things. It's like part of a plan, and everyone has a homesteader and a farmer inside of them, because we all have agrarian ancestors, and many of us have done this in the past life. And when you start doing these things, it's like you have some of this, you have these talent inside of you, because it's part of human, it's how humans have lived for thousands of years. It's this city life and specialized employment is just a blip in a small period of time in a failing civilization that can't last, right? You have so much more that you're capable of in terms of like skill sets and all the rest of these things. And and like I said, everything's like part of a plan, and there's a reason. And seeing that even in the small things is important. And we've really enjoyed this. I've really been happy to see my wife. She loves cute things, and she really loves the chicks, and to see her, and see the mother being a good mom and all this is great. So it's a great experience for her after raising chickens for herself for 10 years and this stuff. Anyways, so that's my broody chicken story. I'm gonna wrap this one up here, re-upload it, because and only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.